vintage.
Yeah.
I've been on several, John, yes.
Been here a while.
By some, but not all. Takes a long time.
Oh, he's getting his own back, Margaret.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Right, okay. Obviously this is not Mark and Marie, so this is not Lonely Tower. But a couple of weeks ago's meeting was absolutely fantastic. And I know that because you told me it was. I thought it was, but when I hear it from you, well, that means something. So we've decided that we're going to sort of enlarge on what Mark did. And you never know, Mark might want some of this footage from today, but Ian's going to film it. Mark only recorded your voices. Ian's going to have images and voices, that's yours. So we're just going to give the topics again on a photograph. And I think the way we did it at the second half of last time, where we asked people one at a time to make a comment on what they're seeing, was the most effective way. It's no good having a discussion when you're recording voices because you don't get who's saying what and you lose a lot of the powerful information. So we'll start off with the first film, and I'll start with Dorothy because she's never short of a few words to say. And then it's going to be and the voices in the second row, Ian, going to be just as...
They'll be fine.
They'll be fine,
Yeah.
okay. Right, so I'll start off with Dorothy, then I'll go to Denise, Eileen, Betty, George, Sheila, John, Joan, George, Bob. That's it.
Hey, that's not very nice, is it?
Well, he didn't know Cole Motors, did he?
He might call.
Right, I'm going to start now then, Dorothy. So this is the first image.
Oh, yes. Now, what about to say? Well, I used to fill the coal like that. The load that's dropped outside the house used to drop outside our house in Byron Street. And me and my dad used to fill it up and carry them into the coal house. And the coal house was right around the back. That's how I'm as fit as I am today. Yeah. And then they brought these out that filled it up themselves, but I didn't have anything to do with them because by the time they come out, my husband was then working at the brewery, so we didn't get any of that. But the coal we did outside. But when I first got married, they used to drop the... lived in South Street at Thornley, and they used to drop the coal outside the little slot, and you used to just throw it in. Well, that was easier than carrying it round the back. And
In buckets, was it?
no, it used to be dropped out like that, and there was in the wall that went round the house, there was a hole, and you just threw it in straight into the coal house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So
Thank you. Denise?
Basically the same as Dorothy, where I can remember the baggers coming out,
Right.
and I can remember people didn't trust them because they used to be watching them like hawks, and if they didn't get a full bag, there was like trouble. Yeah.
Typical shop straight lot.
But yes, I can remember the baggers coming out, and I can also remember them. My dad having to shovel coal into the let hole, like Dorothy said. Yeah. So yes, it was quite interesting.
Brilliant. Eileen?
I can remember putting the coal in at the age at Miners, which is where we are now. And we used to put the coal in for them and getting a couple of bales of coal.
oh yes.
And because at that time my dad didn't work at the pit anymore, so that helped us out. And then I can remember the wagons, the National Coal Board, tipping the coal. And then later on in married life, the autobaggers used to come, because my husband obviously worked at the pit, and we used to count them in. Now with the kids running in and out, or should I phase that to the children running in and out, you lost count. So I used to use matchsticks. Alan used to say, well, use a matchstick when you run. And I used to put a matchstick down, and I used to say, there's one short, so you went out and you played war, you know. So those are my memories of the autobagger.
Brilliant. Bessie, have you got any memories?
Just memories of the load of coal being tipped at the coal house. When we lived in my dad worked at Trimton Pit, he didn't work at Wheatley Hill. and we got it. I can only remember it being tipped and us as kids putting it in the coal house. But we moved before autobaggers became popular.
George?
I can remember the two ladies, like the dress of them, of the time, you know, like and like with a dustpan, and looks like they're putting them in, carrying them with buckets. I remember that like the way the coal is, like the side. If you look at the coal, there's like a big roundy on the back side of the head.
Yes, there is.
And like when I used to go to my Uncle Joe's at Shotton to visit them, like where Shotton delivered, Shotton always had like lots of stone, big stone. I think they had big roundies. It was a different like package. Waitley Hill had less stone, and Shotton always used to have a lot of stone left out, what the them ladies would leave out if it was in Shotton. So you knew Shotton coal was like big stones and like a different load to Waitley Hill. I just remember that, like that's so they're familiarised, like the pennies on the ladies.
Thanks, great. Sheila?
Well, I used to put it in when my dad was working. The same as Dorothy, you know, with the about 5 foot square hole, and throw it in.
No wonder you two are fit.
Not any longer, Margaret. But you could really get up a good rhythm by just use centrifugal force. So you were just lifting it slightly, and the rest, moving your body, carried it straight in. So you could put a load in quite quickly.
Brilliant. John?
As I said at the last meeting, what I remember mostly about it was when I left school, I had no job, didn't look for a job, and everybody going back to school, so I got a lot of putting coal in down the Dardanelles, straight in, and at the time you would only wish that it didn't happen, but it did. Our Nelly wants it around the corner, and you have to take it round in either pails or... You know,
So how much was your payment per house then,
I
John?
think maybe it's a couple of bob, I think.
Right.
Yes.
Was it?
Yes.
Half a crown.
Never in the world.
Half a crown.
We only used to get shed.
Come back to 65, that
Right, thank you.
1965, I think it would be.
Yeah. We used to get half a crown to put the coal in.
Have you got any more memories, John?
Yeah, the wagon that was tipping them. I can remember there was a little net hole on the side of each side of the wagon, and the man used to release. I don't know if it was a long bar, and that's what dropped so much out at each house.
Oh, right.
And during the winter, I can remember coming home from school, and if you always knew when the coalman had been, because there was all these like little pit heaps outside of everybody's gate, covered in snow. It looked lovely. It looked like mountains outside of it.
It was a stone.
But when you were putting the coals in, your dad would take the stone, as you said, if there was any stone there, and put it to one side in the gutter. Now them's the stones that we used to mark the base for the hitchy base when we played hitchy base with, and we didn't have chalk. We used to draw on the pavements.
Right, okay. Good use of the coal. Thank you. George?
Yeah, I can remember the piles of coal being delivered. I used to hear it when you're coming in from school, just turn the corner and there was the coal outside your door. And there were 3 lads of us, and my mother always used to say, oh, go on, put it in for your dad, he's in bed, because he used to work permanent night shift. And we used to live next door to Alf Foster, and I think we used to give them, in fact we probably didn't give them, we probably sold them a bit of the coal or half the coal pile, which we're always grateful, because then they had to carry theirs. And there were also, we had 3 or 4 steps from the gate down across the yard to the coal house, which was bad for a wheelbarrow, but we didn't have a wheelbarrow anyway, so it was, and we never called them buckets, we called them pails.
Pails,
And
I'm sitting here now wondering, because you used to throw the stones to the side, we didn't. If me dad was there, he showed us put the stones to the side. Who collected those stones? Were they He must have been collected.
Ashton man.
Well,
Ashton man.
Did he?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
The bin man.
Yes, the bin man.
Aye.
He went in the bin.
No, no, they were on the side and there you were in the gutter.
All right.
You used to
Okay.
shovel them in.
You live and learn. Yeah.
Thank you. Bob?
Just I'm going to dispute John. We only got a shilling. Because me and you remember Monty Havelock?
Yeah.
Me and Monty Havelock, we used to go around and ask if they wanted the coals putting in. And like you say, the Dardanelles was brilliant because they were dropped outside and you just opened the let and hurried them straight in. But the trouble was, if they didn't have any of them timbers at the front, just stop it going out the door at the back, you used to have to go around the back and chuck them back in.
Oh, brilliant.
Can I just say one more
Yes,
thing,
yes,
Margaret?
yes.
Ray went to work at the brewery for Nimmo's, right? And he'd worked at the pit, and of course he had a wage of £18 a week at the pit. But he went to Nimmo's for £12 a week and a load of coal every 6 weeks. Nimmo's give all of their
Did they?
Nimmo's give every 6 weeks they got a load of coal. Well, that was fantastic.
I'm
Aye,
just
for
going
no
to ask a
problem.
question that might be obvious. Did Wheatley Hill people get Wheatley Hill coal?
I
Yes,
think so.
well,
Yes,
it's
because
the
it's loaded,
skip-
it's
they're
loaded at the top.
Yes.
I don't know about that because my dad worked at Shotton Pit, and I don't know if his was led from Shotton, but there was one time when me mum and dad were renting a house up at by the tavern, the other side of the road.
Wingate Lane?
No, where your grandma lived.
Sandwick Terrace?
Sandwick Terrace. They were renting a house there, and I asked my mum, well, why did you move out of that house? Because the nice houses. She said because Shotton would only lead the coal to the end of the cemetery,
Oh, right.
and they wouldn't take it any further because that was classed as Wingate Lane.
So maybe you got your coal from Shotton Pit because your dad worked there.
That's what I'm thinking because
Was there not a central depot like for household coal?
I don't know.
Because Thorney and Wheatley Hill would be washed coal,
Yeah.
washed at Thorney, Trimdon have no idea about, and Shotton have no idea about. So the quality should have been better from Wheatley Hill
And the
or
others.
Wheatley Hill and Thorney workers,
Right, well
I would
that's
think.
excellent information.
Matty Smith used to be the
Yes, the
coal
coal
motor
man, I
man,
remember that.
and Dorothy's father-in-law, Mr. Peacock, used to where they used to put their tub or their wagon full of coal onto the top of them, formed like a bridge effect, and they reversed the coal wagon. Like what Joan says with the sections in, which are like say 4 loads or 6 loads, and you pull the lever and that equated to a load dropping on the floor, like out of the side chute.
Oh, you were right then, John.
And
so I'm right.
on the corner where that where he's got that stable block now, like
Yeah,
there was
I
it
remember
was
that,
there,
George, now
Yeah.
you come to say,
and used to back there, get a truck what come full of coal,
yeah.
and then fill it, you know. I don't know if it was Wheatley Hill coal or whether it was coal. Why, surely it would be
That must have
probably
been
Wheatley Hill,
yeah.
because I knew about Shotton coal being more stony.
Right.
You know, that was visible when you went to my Auntie Margaret's.
Well, that's excellent information about that, and I think
Can I just say something?
Oh, yes, yes.
They did pull the coal motors at the top of Shop Street and Institute Street, and they filled the wagons from there.
That's where George means.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean on that.
Yeah.
Where it
On the
looked
corner.
like it just
Yeah.
looked like a bridge, didn't
Yeah,
it? Like
because the
and-
trains used to run along there and drop them.
The boss
Not
was
the
Mr.
trains, the
Peacock.
tanky.
By the tanky, you know.
Aye.
Well, we've had our 10 minutes on that.
Right.
If you're all finished.
Yes.
I've got another lots of 10 minutes to do.